What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. I'm sure most of you already heard the news. They came out this morning. California, Stanford, and SMU will be headed to the ACC. Yes, Cal and Stanford will now be in the Atlantic Coast Conference. How much sense does that make? What a crazy offseason with all this conference realignment. I just want to give you a really quick takeaway here and give you any of the info maybe you missed. NC State apparently was the team, the program that, or the school that changed their vote to yes, and so they got the votes that they needed to add these schools. It appears that Cal and Stanford are going to take a pay cut. SMU actually going to be, they're not going to get any money from TV deals for like 7 years. At least this was the proposal. I don't know if I've seen this today that it officially went this way, but this was the proposal. They've got so much money, they don't even need the TV money. They just wanted to be in the Power 5. And so, again, Cal and Stanford, they're going to take a pay cut. They won't get as much as everyone else in the conference. SMU will get nothing. And then that extra money that those teams that are going to bring into the conference will go out to teams. I think there's going to be incentives based off of what you do on the field. So, success on the field, you get more money, which is what Clemson and Florida State wanted. And I think that's probably why they did this, because they wanted to keep Clemson and Florida State happy. But look at this conference now. Look at the ACC now, and we'll talk about the ridiculousness of the geography in just a second. But this conference didn't get any better. Cal and Stanford, and this is I'm specifically talking about football here. Cal and Stanford and SMU do not make this conference any better. They can be lumped right in with those bottom tier teams in the ACC. I know Stanford has had some really good years in the past. Are they going to get back to that? Probably not. SMU, I mean, when is the last time they've had some top 25 teams here and there, but they've never been super relevant. Never been anywhere near top 10 or anything like that. Cal hasn't been great. It hasn't really been. I don't even know the last time Cal was in the top 25. So this just does not make the conference any better from a football standpoint. If anything, it makes it worse. It makes it more like the Big 12 than the SEC or the Big 10. In fact, the Big 12 might. Well, I guess with Florida State, Clemson, Miami, these programs overall, program-wise, the ACC might still be better. But looking at the teams today and how they're playing today, I don't know. The Big 12 might be better top to bottom. So, yeah, you keep Clemson and Florida State happy for now. I still think they probably will leave the ACC at some point because, I mean, when you look at the recruiting side of this, it's going to be a big deal to go to the SEC or the Big 10. Are you really going to sell a recruit on, hey, look, you can come play in the ACC? I mean, this conference is just not going to be anywhere near the level of the SEC or the Big 10. So I don't think it makes the conference any better. It keeps Clemson and Florida State hanging around maybe for a little longer. I still think they're going to wind up leaving at some point. And so, yeah, that's just, I don't think this was, not real crazy about this move. I actually would have rather seen Stanford and Cal go to the Big 10, and then you could at least have some more West Coast teams in that conference, balance it out a little bit more, and then SMU maybe go to the Big 12 if they've got to go to a Power 5 conference. And then you've got the travel issue here, and not really for football. They play once a week. It's not that big of a deal. But think about other sports, basketball, whatever. You gotta travel all. I mean, think about women's basketball. They've got to go all the way from the West Coast to the East Coast, and they're gonna have to do it a lot. I did see something that said Olympic sports. They were actually, if it was an East Coast versus West Coast school, they would meet in Dallas. So that was interesting. And again, the Atlantic Coast Conference will now have two teams from the Pacific Coast. I saw someone jokingly say they could keep it the ACC and just call it the All Coast Conference. But then SMU kind of messes that up. So, I mean, the geography here is just insane. So, again, I think this is going to make the ACC worse. SMU, Cal, and Stanford are the winners here. They get to be in a Power 5 conference. It'll probably help them to stay relevant. And the rest of the conference, who knows what's going to happen. I think Florida State and Clemson will continue to kind of own this conference. Maybe Miami gets up there, but it's more easy wins, I guess, for those top tier teams. And it's crazy. So then you've got Washington State and Oregon State. What happens to them? I just saw that the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, not the ACC, they are not looking at those schools any longer. And so it really comes down to the Mountain West, or maybe Independence, or the Big 12. And I would love to see those teams go to the Big 12. I don't want to see them leave that Power 5 level. I don't think the Big 12 is going to add them. I think they probably wind up in the Mountain West. But I would love to see them in the Big 12 because you've got some other, schools from the West, Arizona State, maybe not that far west, but it brings a little bit more balance to the Big 12 as well. I don't think the Big 10 has any interest. And again, now if the Americans out of it, they're probably going to wind up in the Mountain West. And that's tough because the Mountain West is a pretty good conference, but they're not a Power 5 conference. And those two schools will suffer. They will never be great programs, in my opinion, in the Mountain West. And Oregon State was really on the rise, too. They were really getting there, and you felt like this year maybe they could get into that top part of the Pac-12 and maybe even sneak into the Pac-12 championship game. Washington State has had some good years in the past, but now, I think those two teams will definitely be in the top 4 or 5 of the Mountain West every year, and it'll make the Mountain West better. So if you're a Mountain West fan, I think you win there. But overall, I just hate to see this. I hate the way things have gone. If we're going to have these conferences, especially like the SEC and the Big Ten, kind of separate themselves, can we just do away with all the cupcake games? The only way that this is a win for college football fans is if you play Big Ten versus SEC in the non-conference, and you play, you can maybe have one game that's not a Power 5 game, but the rest of your games, let's play Power 5 versus Power 5. Let's play, so the SEC, in my opinion, should play the Big Ten every year, and then each team should alternate with the ACC and the Big 12, something like that, just to get more of these teams playing each other, because we're only going to have 4 power conferences now. It'll be the Power 4, and it's really the Power 2, and then the next 2 with the ACC and the Big 12, and then those lower tier conferences, because the Big 10 and the SEC are just going to be so much better than the ACC and the Big 12. Doesn't mean a team can't come out of the ACC or the Big 12 and have a really good year and maybe even make a run at a national championship, but top to bottom, these conferences, they're just not comparable. So I would love to get your thoughts on this. I think that, given what has already happened, this is fine, whatever. I hate to see it. I'd like to go back in a race. I'd like to go back to Oklahoma and Texas and keep them in the Big 12. That's where this all really started in this latest run of realignment. Once they moved, then the Big 10 thought they had to do something, and then here we go. I'd love to go back to how it was before Oklahoma and Texas announced that they were leaving the Big 12. So it's going to be a different world in college football next year. You're going to have the 12-team playoff. You're going to have all these new conferences. Maybe it'll be fun. Maybe it'll be exciting. We'll see when we get there. But yeah, give me your thoughts on this. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.